Story 1. I never told anyone the real reason we went camping that weekend. Not the police. Not my therapist. Not even the search party that found me curled up under the redwoods, covered in Mike's blood, whispering to shadows that weren't there anymore. I said it was our anniversary, a romantic getaway. But the truth is simpler and uglier. I needed to know if Mike still loved me enough to forgive what I'd done. I thought the forest would force the truth out of us. I was right. Just not the way I expected. We drove 6 hours into the Olympic Peninsula, past towns that got smaller until there were none left. The fog rolled in thick as we hiked the last mile to the grove. Towering redwoods loomed like silent judges. We pitched the tent between two massive trunks whose roots looked like twisted fingers reaching out of the earth. Mike laughed and kissed my forehead. "Perfect spot for stargazing," he said. I smiled, but my stomach twisted. The stars were hidden behind clouds anyway. That first night, we made love inside the tent, quick and hungry like we were trying to prove something. Afterward, we lay on top of the sleeping bags, sweaty and quiet, listening to the forest breathe. Then it started. A whisper, soft, almost sweet, like someone standing just outside the tent flap, murmuring a secret. We froze. Mike sat up first. "Did you hear that?" "Yeah," I whispered. "Wind?" We listened. Another murmur. Then my name, Sarah. Clear as if Mike had said it himself, only softer, more intimate. He grabbed my hand so hard it hurt. We laughed, nervously. "Probably an owl or something," he said. But his voice cracked. We zipped the tent tighter and tried to sleep. By the second night, the whispers weren't hiding anymore. They knew our names. They knew our secrets. Mike heard his mother's voice first. She died when he was 14. Car accident he still blamed himself for because he'd begged her to drive him to hockey practice in a storm. The whisper sounded exactly like her. "You should have told me you were scared, baby. You should have said no." Mike's face went white. He started crying, something I'd only seen once in 7 years. Then it was my turn. The voice that came next wasn't my mother's. It was Daniel's. The man I'd slept with 3 years ago when Mike and I were fighting every day, and I thought we were done. I'd never told Mike. I swore I'd take it to my grave, but the forest didn't care about graves. "Sarah," it purred, low and warm, like Daniel used to sound in the dark. "You liked it when I held your wrists. You liked pretending you didn't have a choice. You still think about it when Mike touches you, don't you?" I felt the air leave my lungs. Mike was staring at me like I was a stranger. "What's it talking about, Sarah?" "Nothing," I lied. "It's just making stuff up." But the whispers kept going. They listed every lie I'd ever told him, every time I'd smiled while hiding guilt. They told Mike about the hotel room, the red dress I wore, the way I laughed when Daniel said my name. Mike stood up, shaking. "Is it true?" I couldn't look at him. It was one time. I was angry. I regretted it immediately. He made a sound like something breaking inside his chest. Then he laughed, a short, ugly sound. One time, right. We didn't sleep. We sat back to back in the tent, silent, while the whispers circled us like wolves. Shadows started moving outside the nylon walls. Not tree shadows, people-shaped ones. Tall, thin, too tall. They drifted past the campfire embers, blocking the light, then drifting back. Every time one passed, the whispers grew louder, sharper. "You never forgave him for not noticing you were unhappy," one hissed at me. "You never forgave her for choosing someone else," another answered Mike. We started arguing. Small things at first, then bigger. I accused him of being distant. He accused me of being selfish. The words came out fast and cruel, like the forest was feeding them to us. By 3 a.m., we were screaming at each other, faces inches apart, spit flying. Then Sarah's voice, my voice, called from outside the tent. "Mike, help me. It hurts." Mike's head snapped up. "That's you. "It's not me," I said, voice trembling. "I'm right here," but he was already unzipping the flap. "Sarah? Where are you? Mike, don't!" I grabbed his arm. He shook me off so hard I fell backward. "I'm coming," he called into the fog. He stepped outside. The shadows rushed in behind him. I screamed his name. I crawled after him, flashlight shaking in my hand. The beam caught glimpses, his red jacket moving between trees, then nothing. Just fog and redwoods and silence. I don't know how long I searched. Hours, maybe. My throat was raw from calling. Then I saw him. He was hanging from a high branch, upside down, ankles tied with what looked like our own tent cord. His throat was open. Blood had run down his face and dried in streaks across his wide, staring eyes. Those eyes looked right at me, pleading and accusing at the same time. I dropped to my knees and sobbed. That's when the shadows came closer. They didn't attack. They just stood around me in a loose circle, tall and faceless. The whispers changed. They weren't cruel anymore. They were gentle, inviting. "You don't have to be alone, Sarah. You could stay with us. With him. He's waiting for you here. Forever." I looked up at Mike's body swaying gently. One of the shadows reached out a long, thin hand and brushed my cheek. It felt cold and familiar. I haven't left the woods yet. I walk between the redwoods at night, listening. Sometimes I hear my own voice calling Mike's name. Sometimes I hear his voice calling mine. I don't know which one is real anymore. But I know one thing. The forest remembers every secret you try to bury, and it's never in a hurry to let you go. Story 2. I still hear them calling my name sometimes, even though I'm the only one who made it out. The police said I was in shock, that I'd imagined most of it. They found the torn tent, the blood, the footprints that didn't make sense. But they never found my family. They never will. Because the thing that took them doesn't leave bodies. It keeps voices. We needed that trip. Dad said it out loud on the drive. "We're falling apart, guys. Too many phones, too many fights. One weekend in the mountains, and we'll remember we're a family." Mom smiled like she believed him. Emma rolled her eyes. I just stared out the window at the Appalachian ridges rolling past like green waves. I was 15, angry at everything, and secretly glad to be away from school. We hiked deep into the national forest, farther than most people go. Dad picked a clearing near an old creek, surrounded by thick laurel and tall oaks. The air smelled clean, like wet leaves and earth. That first day was actually good. We laughed while setting up the tents. Mom made terrible campfire chili. Emma and I raced to the creek and splashed each other until we were soaked. For a few hours, it felt like we were kids again. That night, we sat around the fire telling dumb stories. Someone mentioned skinwalkers, those old native legends about creatures that wear human skin and mimic voices to hunt. Dad laughed and said it was just stories to keep people from trespassing on sacred land. We all laughed with him. Even I did. We should have listened. The second day, we hiked hard, up a steep ridge and back down. By evening, we were exhausted, happy tired. We ate, crawled into our tents, and passed out fast. I don't know what time it started. I just remember waking up to Emma screaming my name. "Jake! Help! I'm hurt!" It came from the woods, sharp and scared. My heart slammed against my ribs. I scrambled out of my sleeping bag and ran outside. Mom and Dad were already there, flashlights cutting through the dark. "Emma?" Dad shouted. "Where are you?" Another cry. "Over here! Please hurry!" We ran toward the sound, crashing through brush, calling her name. Then Mom stopped dead. "Wait! She's in the tent!" We turned. There was Emma's silhouette, still zipped inside her sleeping bag, breathing slow and steady. The scream came again, louder, from deeper in the trees. That's when we knew something was very wrong. The voices multiplied. I heard Emma screaming. Mom heard Dad begging, "Lisa, it's got me! Run!" Dad heard Mom crying for help. Emma woke up then, confused and terrified, asking what was happening. We dragged her out and huddled together by the dying fire. Then we saw it. At first it looked like a deer stepping out of the shadows, tall, thin antlers catching moonlight. But its eyes were wrong. Too big, too human. It stared at us, head tilted like it was listening. Then its face shifted. The snout shortened. The eyes moved closer together. In seconds it looked almost like Dad, only stretched. Limbs too long, fingers ending in black claws. Dad stepped in front of us. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The thing opened its mouth and spoke with Mom's voice. "David, don't be stupid. Come here." Dad raised the hatchet we used for firewood. "Get away from my family." It laughed. Emma's laugh, bright and cruel, and lunged. Dad swung hard. The blade caught its shoulder, but the thing didn't even flinch. It grabbed his arm, twisted, and I heard bone snap. Dad screamed. Then its claws raked across his throat in one fast motion. Blood sprayed hot across my face. He dropped without another sound. Mom shrieked and pulled us toward the tent. We dove inside and zipped it shut, shaking, crying, holding each other. Emma kept whispering, "Daddy, Daddy," like saying it enough would bring him back. Outside, the voices started again, all of them ours. My voice called, "Mom, it's safe now. Come out." Emma's voice begged, "Jake, I'm scared. Open the door." Mom's voice sobbed, "Kids, please help me. I'm bleeding." We covered our ears, but the sounds crawled inside anyway. Then the tent started moving, not wind, something peeling the fabric from the outside, slow and patient. A claw poked through, then another. The roof sagged as the thing climbed on top. We saw its shadow, long arms, twisted head, pressed against the nylon. It spoke in Dad's voice, gentle and warm like when he used to tuck me in. "Let me in, kids. I just want to keep you safe." Emma screamed and kicked at the wall. The claw sliced down, opening the tent like a can. Moonlight poured in, and there it was, crouched over us, skin hanging loose like a bad costume, eyes shining with hunger. It didn't want to eat us. I saw that in its face. It wanted to wear us. It grabbed Mom first. She fought, scratching and biting, but it pinned her down and pressed its mouth over hers like a kiss. Her body went stiff. Her eyes rolled back. When it pulled away, her face was slack, empty. Then her mouth moved, and Dad's voice came out. "Good girl." Emma ran. I tried to follow, but it caught my ankle. Pain exploded up my leg. I kicked free and crawled out the rip in the tent. I didn't look back. I just ran through the dark, branches whipping my face, lungs burning. Behind me, the voices rose together, Mom's, Dad's, Emma's, calling my name in perfect chorus, laughing, singing the stupid campfire song we'd sung earlier. I ran until sunrise, until I fell into the creek, and a ranger found me half dead from cold and terror. They searched for days, found the tent shredded, found Dad's body drained and folded wrong, found drag marks leading deeper into the mountains. But no Mom, no Emma. Sometimes, late at night, I hear them on the wind, all three voices, happy and close, calling me back to the woods. "Jake, come home. We're waiting. We miss you." I lock the doors. I cover my ears, but I know one day I'll answer. Because family sticks together, forever. Story 3. I keep dreaming about the baby we never got to hold. In the dream, it's always crying from somewhere inside that old cabin, a thin wail that echoes off the logs. I wake up reaching for Jordan, but my arms close around nothing. The doctors say I'm grieving. They don't know I still hear those children scratching at the walls of our apartment at night. They weren't ours, but now they feel like they are. We needed to get away after the miscarriage. The city was too loud, too full of strollers and pregnant bellies. Jordan found a remote spot in northern British Columbia, miles of pine and rock, no trails, no people, just us, a tent, and silence. We told ourselves the cold air would heal us. We were wrong. The first day was perfect. We hiked until our legs burned, set up camp beside a quiet lake, made love under the stars like we were 20 again. On the second morning, we spotted the cabin, half collapsed, roof sagging, windows dark. It sat in a small clearing, surrounded by stumps from long ago logging. Something about it pulled us closer. Curiosity, maybe, or something worse. Inside, everything was covered in gray dust, a rusted stove, broken chairs. On a shelf, we found 3 leather journals, pages brittle but readable. They belonged to a family named Harlow, husband, wife, 3 young children, who came here in 1892 to cut timber. The writing started normal. Trees felled, money earned, plans for a better life. Then it changed. They dug foundations and hit bones, old graves, indigenous burial ground. The father wrote that the natives warned them to stop, but the money was too good. After that, the entries grew frantic. Food vanished, children cried from the woods, shadows moved inside the cabin at night. The last pages were smeared with frozen tears, the family trapped by endless winter, eating bark, then leather, then nothing. They starved slowly, scratching at the walls until their fingers bled, hearing their own children call from outside when the children were already dead inside. Jordan closed the journal gently. "Just a sad story," she said, but her voice shook. That night the storm hit. Wind howled like animals, rain hammered the tent. We lay awake, holding each other, trying to ignore the grief that still sat heavy between us. Then came the scratching, soft at first. Nails on nylon, slow circles around the tent. We sat up, flashlights trembling. Outside the mesh window, small pale faces pressed close. 3 children, skin white as bone, eyes empty black holes. They stared without blinking. One little girl opened her mouth and spoke in a voice like wind through dead leaves. "You took what wasn't yours," Jordan gasped. I pulled her close. "It's the wind. It's just the storm." But the scratching grew louder. More voices joined, small, hungry, ancient. They told us their names. They told us how it felt to starve, how the cold crept into bones and never left. Then the pain started. Jordan clutched her stomach first. "I'm so hungry," she whispered. "Alex, it hurts so bad." Her face went pale, sweat beading even in the cold. She curled into a ball, crying that she could feel her body eating itself. I tried to give her food, water, anything, but she screamed that it turned to ash in her mouth. My turn came slower. A chill started in my toes, spread upward like ice water in my veins. Frostbite, though the tent was dry. My skin turned gray, fingers blackened at the tips. I felt the rot crawling, flesh dying while I watched. We couldn't stay. The children's faces were everywhere now, pressed against every side of the tent. We grabbed our packs and ran through the storm toward the cabin, the only shelter for miles. The door slammed shut behind us. We pounded on it, but it wouldn't budge. Inside, the air was wrong. Too still, too cold. Then the family appeared. Not shadows. Full bodies, decaying slowly. The father's skin hung loose, eyes sunken. The mother's hair fell in clumps. The 3 children stood in front, smiling with cracked lips. They looked like us. The mother's face was Jordan's, only starved and mad. The father wore my features, cheeks hollow, teeth yellow. The children... God, the children had the face we'd imagined for our lost baby, multiplied 3 times. They spoke with our voices. "You let us die," the little ones whispered. "You let the cold take us." Jordan stared at the rotting version of herself. Tears ran down her face. "We didn't mean to lose you," she said to the ghosts, to our baby, to everything. The hunger took her completely then. Her eyes glazed over. She turned to me slowly, lips pulled back in a snarl. "You're the monster," she hissed. "You brought us here to die." She came at me with broken fingernails, scratching, biting. I fought back just enough to keep her off, but I couldn't hurt her. We fell together on the dirty floor, rolling, crying, while the ghost family watched and smiled. I don't remember much after that. Days of cold and hunger and voices. Jordan screaming my name, then screaming at me. Me begging her to see me, to remember. When the rescuers finally broke down the door a week later, the storm had passed. They found the cabin empty, except for 2 skeletons on the floor. Bones picked clean, arms wrapped around each other. Our faces were still there, skin stretched tight in endless screams. They said animals must have gotten in. They said we starved or froze, but I know better. I'm still here, inside the wood, inside the walls, scratching softly at night, waiting for the next couple who needs to get away from their pain. We have room for 1 more child. Come visit. The door sticks sometimes, but we'll let you in. We always do. Story 4. I still smell the blood on cold air when I close my eyes. Pine needles, gun oil, and something coppery that never washes off. People ask why I don't talk about my fiancé anymore. I tell them Taylor died in an accident. That's easier than the truth. He's still hanging in the Alaskan taiga, swaying gently whenever the wind blows through those black spruce. And I'm the one who left him there. We wanted one last adventure before the wedding. No phones, no guests, no stress, just us, our tent, and the endless quiet north of Fairbanks. February, when the days are short and the snow is deep. We flew into a tiny airstrip, then snowshoed 10 miles into the wilderness. The land felt huge and empty. Perfect. The first sign was small. Our food bag, hung high on a bear line, was lower in the morning. A few energy bars missing. We laughed. Maybe a clever Martin. The second morning, my knife was gone from my pack. Taylor's compass spun wild, like someone had magnetized it. We blamed cold fingers and bad luck. Then we saw the carvings. On birch trunks all around camp, someone had whittled animals, rabbits, moose, caribou, but with human faces. My face on a hare, Taylor's on a deer. The eyes were scratched deep, staring. Taylor rubbed one with his glove. "Some artist with too much time," he said, but his voice was tight. That night we made love by the fire to feel alive. Snow fell soft and silent. We were tangled in our sleeping bags, laughing between kisses when the arrow came. It hissed past my ear and buried itself in the log beside Taylor's head. Feathers still quivering. We jumped up, naked and scrambling. Another arrow thunked into the snow where I'd been lying. "Run!" Taylor yelled. We grabbed boots and coats and bolted into the trees. Branches whipped our faces. Snow sucked at our legs. Behind us, a voice drifted through the dark, calm, almost amused. "Run, little rabbits. The game's just starting." He played with us for hours. First the snares, thin wire loops hidden under fresh powder. I heard Taylor scream behind me. When I turned, his ankle was caught, bone jutting white through skin. He bit down on his glove to keep from passing out. "I've got you," I whispered, cutting him free. I hoisted him onto my back and kept moving. Every step left a red trail. Then the pits. I felt the snow give way under my foot. I threw Taylor sideways and fell alone. Stakes, sharpened spruce branches, waited below. One speared through my calf. Pain exploded white hot. I screamed until my throat bled. Taylor dragged me out, crying my name over and over. We hid in a thicket of willow, breathing hard, trying to stop the bleeding. That's when the voice came again, closer. "You're tough, girl. Most couples break faster." He knew our names. He'd been watching long enough to learn them. Taylor whispered we should split up, double our chances. I refused. We stayed together, limping through the night, following the faint glow of northern lights. Near dawn, we reached a small clearing. He was waiting, tall, camouflaged in white and gray, face painted with ash and blood. A compound bow hung easy in his hands. He smiled like we were old friends. Taylor tried to stand between us. "Leave her alone," the man laughed. "That's sweet, real sweet." He shot Taylor in the thigh, high where it bleeds fast. Taylor dropped. I lunged with my ice axe, swinging wild. The man sidestepped, grabbed my wrist, twisted until the axe fell. He smelled like smoke and old meat. He dragged Taylor to a big spruce and hoisted him up with rope, alive, conscious, bleeding slow. Taylor's eyes found mine. "I love you, Rye. Run." I didn't run. I fought. I clawed his face, bit his ear until I tasted blood. He slammed me against a tree, tied my hands with paracord. Then he showed me his collection. Dug into the frozen ground was a small cave. Inside, on ledges of ice, sat skulls. Dozens. Cleaned and polished. Some still had hair frozen to them. Couples, mostly. Rings glinted on finger bones laid neatly beside each head. "Wedding gifts," he said softly. "They all come here to be alone. I give them forever." He left me tied to a tree, facing Taylor. The sun rose pale and cold. Wolves came first, one, then three, then a pack, gray shadows circling. Taylor was too weak to scream anymore. I closed my eyes, but I still heard it. The sounds, the wet tearing. When the man came back, he sat beside me and sharpened his knife, humming a lullaby. "Almost your turn, Rabbit." But something happened. A storm rolled in fast, whiteout, howling wind. Visibility dropped to nothing. In the chaos, the rope around my wrists loosened. Just enough. I slipped free, grabbed the ice axe from the snow, and ran blind into the blizzard. I don't know how I made it out. Days of walking, eating snow, following the sun when it showed. A trapper found me half dead on a riverbank. They searched for weeks. Found the cave, the skulls, Taylor's body. Mostly bones by then. They never found the man. Tracks just vanished in the snow. Sometimes, when the wind blows hard outside my window, I hear him. "Run, little rabbit." I lock the doors. I check the windows. But deep down, I know the truth. The game isn't over. He's patient. And Alaska is big. Story 5. I don't sleep with the windows open anymore. Not because of mosquitoes or flies, but because I can still hear it. That low, electric buzz, like a warning the jungle whispered only to me. They pulled me out of the Amazon half dead, my skin crawling with things that shouldn't exist. They said I was lucky to survive. Lucky. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't feel what's still inside me. We wanted the kids to love nature the way Carlos and I did. Mia and Luca were 7, all wide eyes and endless questions about birds and snakes. So we booked an eco-camping trip deep in the Peruvian rainforest, a pristine spot by a river bend, far from tourists. Sophia, Carlos, and our twins, our little Rivera clan, ready to learn about the world. We didn't know we'd pitched our tent on top of a nightmare. The first day was magic. We hiked through emerald ferns, spotted toucans flashing color in the canopy. Luca found a frog so tiny it fit on his fingertip. Mia braided vines into crowns and declared herself Jungle Queen. That night, we set up camp under a massive ceiba tree, its roots sprawling like veins. Carlos built a fire, and we roasted marshmallows, laughing as the kids smeared sticky goo on their chins. The river hummed nearby, soft and alive. Then the buzzing started. It came at dusk, faint like distant power lines. "Mosquitoes," Carlos said, swatting the air. I sprayed the kids with repellent, but the sound grew louder, sharper. Not mosquitoes. Something heavier. Something wrong. We were passing the marshmallow bag when the swarm hit. They poured from the undergrowth, thousands of beetles, each the size of a thumbnail, their shells glinting like oil slicks under the firelight. They moved like a wave, fast and deliberate, drawn to us, to our warmth, our breath. "Our blood! Run!" Carlos shouted, grabbing Mia. I scooped up Luca, but the beetles were already on us. They landed soft as raindrops, then burrowed. Tiny mandibles sliced into my arms, my neck. I felt their legs inside my skin, crawling deeper. A burning sting followed, venom spreading fast. My muscles locked. I couldn't scream, couldn't move, but I could still see, still feel. Carlos fell first. He'd tried to shield Mia, but the beetles coated him like a second skin, shimmering over his face, his chest. His eyes bulged, mouth open in a silent scream as they carved into him. Blood seeped from 100 tiny wounds, pooling black in the dirt. He twitched once, then went still, but his chest kept moving, not breathing, crawling. The twins were next. Mia and Luca were small, easy targets. The beetles swarmed their little bodies, burrowing into cheeks, arms, eyelids. Mia's crown of vines fell as she collapsed, her eyes locked on mine, pleading. Luca reached for me, fingers curling, but the venom held him down. I saw the beetles tunnel deeper, their shells glinting through thin skin. My baby's faces twisted, not in pain, but in terror, as the swarm ate them from the inside. I tried to scream. My throat wouldn't obey. The beetles spared me mostly. A few burrowed into my legs, my back, but not enough to kill. Just enough to paralyze. I dragged myself away from the fire, nails digging into mud, inch by inch. The buzzing followed. They weren't done with me. I crawled for hours, maybe days. The jungle blurred, green to gray to black. My skin burned where they'd nested. I felt them moving, laying eggs in the soft places under my flesh. Every heartbeat pulsed with their rhythm. I saw Carlos's face in my mind, then Mia's, then Luca's, all hollowed out, staring from the dark. I collapsed by the river, too weak to move. The buzzing was inside me now, loud as a storm. I felt eggs hatch, tiny legs skittering through muscle. My body wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to them. A local fisherman found me, raving about beetles and blood. They airlifted me to a hospital in Lima. Doctors cut out what they could, scarred tissue, dead larvae, but they missed some. I know they did. I feel them at night, shifting under my skin, waiting. They never found our camp. The river had flooded, washing away the tent, the fire, my family. They said it was a freak accident, maybe a toxic spill from an illegal mine nearby. Mutated insects, they guessed. But no one went back to look. Sometimes, when it's quiet, I hear the buzz again. Not outside, inside. Under my ribs, behind my eyes. I scratch until I bleed, but they're too deep. Last week I found a mark on my arm, a tiny scar shaped like a beetle. It wasn't there before. Yesterday, another appeared. They're growing. I think they're calling the others. The jungle never lets go. It sent me back with a message carved into my bones. I'm their home now, their hive, and they're hungry. Story 6. I still walk the Scottish hills sometimes, even though I know I shouldn't. On quiet evenings, when the mist starts to gather in the glens, I hear Nina crying, my baby's voice, thin and far away, calling Mummy over and over. The police told me it was trauma, grief making tricks with the wind. But I know better. The fog never really lifted. It just let me go so I could carry their voices with me forever. We wanted to give our daughter roots. Arav and I were born in Glasgow, but our parents came from India, and we felt something missing. Grandfather Raj said the highlands reminded him of old stories, wild places where spirits still walked. He was 82, frail, but his eyes lit up when we suggested a quiet camping trip near Loch Morlich. Just the 5 of us, Arav, me, Raj, and little Nina, barely 6 months old, always smiling in her carrier. The first 2 days were perfect. We pitched our big tent on soft grass above the loch. Heather bloomed purple all around. Raj told stories by the campfire, tales of brave warriors and seedy folk who lived in the mist. Nina gurgled at the flames. Arav held my hand like we were young again. We felt connected, whole. Then the fog came. It rolled in fast one afternoon, thick as wool, swallowing the loch, the trees, the sky. Sound vanished with it. No birds, no wind, no distant cars. Just silence so deep it pressed against our ears. We laughed at first. "Proper Scottish weather," Arav said. We zipped the tent tight and played cards while Nina slept. That night the whispers started. Soft at first, like someone breathing just outside the nylon. Gaelic words we didn't understand, mixed with sighs and small cries. Raj sat up suddenly. "Partition," he whispered. His face went gray. "The trains, the screaming." He clutched his chest, eyes wide, seeing things we couldn't. In minutes he aged, skin tightening over bones, hair whitening, hands shaking like dry leaves. He curled into himself, mumbling names of people long dead. By morning, he was gone. Not dead exactly, worse. A dried husk, empty, mouth frozen open as if still screaming. Arav tried to stay strong. "We'll wait for the fog to lift," he said, voice cracking. But the whispers found him next. I watched my husband's face change. He stared at nothing and started apologizing. To Nina, to me, to a son we never had. "I wasn't there," he kept saying. "I worked too late. I missed her first steps. I'm failing you all." Tears ran down his cheeks. He stood up, eyes blank, and walked toward the tent flap. "Arav, no!" I grabbed him, but he was heavy, lost in whatever he saw. "They need me," he murmured. "I have to make it right." He stepped into the fog. I screamed his name until my throat bled, but the mist swallowed him whole. I never heard him again. Nina woke crying then. Real crying, sharp and hungry. I held her close, rocking, singing the lullaby my mother sang to me. But the whispers slid inside the tent like cold fingers. The fog pressed against the walls, turning the nylon gray. Pale hands appeared, long, thin, glowing faintly, reaching through the fabric without tearing it. They stroked Nina's cheeks, her tiny arms. Her cries changed. They weren't pain at first, just weaker. Her skin grew cool, her big brown eyes dimmed. Then the voices spoke with her voice. "Mummy doesn't love me enough," baby Nina said, though her mouth never moved. "Mummy wishes I was quieter, easier." "Gone," I sobbed, pressing her tighter. "No, no, my darling, I love you more than anything." But the hands kept touching, draining. Her little body grew lighter in my arms, like something essential was leaking out. I don't know what made me think of fire. Maybe Raj's stories about banishing spirits. I crawled outside with Nina against my chest, grabbed burning branches from our dying campfire, and waved them at the fog. Flames hissed against the mist, sending up sparks. The whispers stopped. For one heartbeat, everything was silent. Then they screamed, hundreds of voices, angry, ancient, hungry. The fog surged forward, dark shapes swirling inside it. Hands grabbed my ankles, my hair, cold wrapped around me like wet rope. Nina slipped from my arms, no weight at all now, and vanished into gray. I felt myself pulled, not roughly, gently, like going to sleep when you're too tired to fight. The last thing I remember is reaching for her tiny hand, disappearing in the mist. They found me 3 days later, wandering a road 10 miles away, barefoot, covered in dew. The tent was untouched, sleeping bags neat, campfire cold, food untouched. No bodies, no footprints leading away, just empty. Searchers heard faint crying on the wind for weeks, baby cries, an old man's prayers, a woman calling her husband's name. They said it was echoes in the hills, but I know what's out there. The fog waits for families who want peace. It shows you every regret, every doubt, every moment you weren't enough. It feeds on that shame until there's nothing left but hollow skin and trapped voices. Sometimes, when mist rolls down from the highlands, I go back. I stand at the edge and listen. They're still there. All of them. Waiting for me to join them forever.